You're listening to the Landing Page School podcast, where we give you bite-sized insights on landing page design, A/B testing, and conversion optimization. If you want to convert more website visitors into customers, this is where it all starts. And now, here's your host, Nicholas Scalise.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Landing Page School podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Scalise, and today I'll be covering the topic of form optimization. Now, don't worry, I know that sounds like it's a boring topic, but it's actually really important when it comes to conversion optimization and getting more conversions on your landing pages. Because if you think about it, the majority of landing pages have some sort of interactive device, which is usually a form that you want your visitors to engage with. That's part of your call to action. So getting that form just right, making sure that you are doing everything you can to ensure that people are not going to have a problem with it, it's not going to cause excess friction, and that people are actually going to fill it out is super important, or else why are you even doing this? So what we're going to cover here is a little bit more information on why form optimization matters and some of the trends that are going on in the industry. And then I'll give you 5 specific actionable tips that you can implement right away with your forms. So you'll definitely want to take notes, but don't worry, you don't have to write any of this down because I'll have the notes with all of the links that I mentioned in the show notes page at landingpageschool.com/005 for episode 5. That's landingpageschool.com/005. So let's jump right in. One thing about forms is they haven't really changed much in the last 10 years in online marketing. If you look at a form from 10 years ago, it's going to look pretty similar to most forms that you see on landing pages and websites and contact pages today. You're going to have your form fields, you're going to have your same basic questions for the most part. So it hasn't really changed. However, that is starting to change. There's a new trend now with a move towards conversational forms. There's a lot of companies leading this new push into conversational forms. Some of them are Typeform, which you may have heard of. It's a very popular form building product. I love it. It's embeddable. You can use it on landing pages. You can use it as a standalone page, and it just makes it a lot more comfortable to fill out a form. Then you have companies like Landbot.io. They are probably doing some of the most revolutionary work when it comes to conversational forms. Their whole premise is you shouldn't have to fill out field after field. You should feel like you're having a conversation on a website. So they use AI, and it's just like having a chat conversation. So it's very interactive. Then you have companies like Leadformly, which are similar to Typeform, and they focus all on creating different types of forms and using images and using different input devices so that it's not just the boring form field after form field after form field, but it actually feels like you're completing a journey, and it's a fun process. So as crazy as that sounds, filling out forms can actually be fun if you use the right tools and if you try to make it conversational. So I think that's really the trend. That's where all of this is going. And in a few years from now, I think we're going to look back and say it was crazy that we had all these forms that were literally just, form field after form field stacked on top of each other, all shown at once. It's just not the way to do it. But for now, that's still what we're going to see on the majority of landing pages. So let me give you 5 actionable tips that you can start using right away to optimize the forms on your landing pages. Tip number 1, start by gathering the data that you need. So you don't want to just jump in and start changing everything up without knowing what's already working for you and what's not working. I've seen some really ugly forms with a lot of questions and a lot of requirements that have performed really well because the offer was really good, or they really knew who they were targeting. People really wanted what they were offering. So start by gathering data. You don't want to fix something if it's not broken. So you need to see, do you have a problem with your forms? Do you feel like you can get more conversions? Let the data show you. Now, there's different tools you can do this with. The most popular way is just to use Google Analytics, although it is a little bit complicated because you'd have to set up event tracking for every form field on every page, and it can take some work. If you're not comfortable with Google Analytics, I would recommend using a dedicated tool that does this for you. So there are form analytics tools out there. The one that I probably use most often is the tool that Hotjar provides, and it's just one of several tools that Hotjar has in their analytics and feedback suite. So Hotjar is probably most well known for heat maps and scroll maps and visitor recordings, but one of their lesser known tools that's included is a form analytics tool. And so it'll show you, once you install it, once you let it collect some data, it will show you how many people are filling the first form field, the second form field, and you'll sort of see that drop-off rate. And you'll see, maybe there's one question on there that's really confusing your visitors and it's not getting as much engagement, and that's preventing people from completing the form. So Hotjar is probably a easy to use solution. They have a free plan, so you can get started right away with Hotjar. Another tool, if you're looking for something even more in-depth and you want a purely form-focused analytics tool, check out Formismo, Formisimo. They are probably the leading form analytics tool in this space because that's all they do. It's an analytics tool that goes really in-depth. They do all that basic stuff that I just mentioned, but you can also see breakdown by device type. So you can see, are more people having issues with your form on mobile devices or on desktop? So if you really want to take it to the next level, a tool like Formismo will definitely help get you there. Now, I'm not affiliated with any of these tools that I mentioned. I should restate that. A lot of these tools, I just use them, not an affiliate for any of them. So I just recommend them because they're pretty solid tools. But of course, do your own research, do your own due diligence, and definitely just try out different tools. Most of the tools these days in the conversion optimization space have a free trial of some sort. Another thing you need to do to gather data is collect usability testing information. So what does this mean? Well, you want to get a good idea of how people are interacting with your pages. The information you can get from tools like Hotjar or Google Analytics or Formismo, that's going to give you a lot of the quantitative stuff. Like, this is how many people didn't complete the form, or this is how many people got stuck on this form field. It tells you what happened, but it doesn't necessarily tell you why it happened. So to do that, you need to do some usability testing. One of the easiest way to do it is to use a tool like Hotjar that allows you to record sessions, and then you can go back and play those sessions, and you can see how people are interacting on your pages. It takes time to do this because you first have to let it collect the session recording data. Then you actually have to take time to go through them. You can speed them up and watch them faster than a normal speed, but it does take time because you're looking at actual users who are navigating your pages. But it's super, super helpful, especially on pages that contain forms, because you'll see the difficulties people have with forms that you might totally have not even realized. So that's one way to do it. Or you can just get some friends, some coworkers, some people in your target audience to do regular usability testing where it's a more controlled environment where you're asking them to do usability testing and show them the page, say, what is this page about? And just sort of don't guide them too much. Just let them sort of figure out the page and just observe and take notes. So that's a fantastic way of getting insights, especially if you don't have enough traffic to run with a Formismo or a Hotjar type setup, because for those tools to work, you need to collect a lot of data. So if you're brand new, you haven't launched yet, start with usability testing, because that's going to get you at least some insights without having to wait for all the traffic to start pouring in. Number 2, fix your form usability issues first. So usability is super important pretty much with anything online, but especially with landing pages, because for the most part, you're sending dedicated paid traffic to these pages. You're paying for these visitors to see your page and to see your message and to see your offer. And so you want to make sure that usability is not even a concern, like that the page absolutely works, that it works on all devices, that it's fast, that it doesn't have any type of problem that is preventing people from engaging or doing what they want to do on that page. And there are a lot of usability issues when it comes to forms that I've seen. Some of the more common ones are when you have field validation. So we've all seen it where you type into a form field, but maybe it's a numbers only field and you put in a letter and it gives you an error. So that would be like an error message. The problem is a lot of times the errors are at the top of the form. So you fill out a form, scroll to the bottom, you click submit. It's giving you an error, but the error message is at the very top of the form or maybe down at the bottom. And so you don't know right away where you made the mistake. So what you need to do is make sure whatever program you're using has inline error validation. You want the errors to be next to the fields that are causing the error so that the user knows right away, oh, it was the phone number field. Oh, it was the email field. It wasn't formatted right. Oh, I didn't complete this field. So you don't want just a general message at the bottom that says your form was not filled out correctly. You want them to know immediately what they need to do to correct that issue. Another issue I see quite often is forms that only have placeholder text. They don't have a label above the form fields. And this creates a lot of usability issues because when someone clicks into that field, usually the placeholder text is going to disappear. And people are not looking at your page with their, trying to memorize everything. So if they do that, they might forget, oh no, was this field asking me for my phone number, my email address, my company name, my first name, my last name? They're going to forget. And that's going to cause some anxiety and some friction. So you always want to have labels above or to the left of your form fields. You could still use placeholder text, but that should be more like a hint, maybe some additional information, only if you absolutely feel it's necessary. Otherwise, don't, because keep it as simple as possible. You don't want there to be too much text on your form, but don't only use placeholder text. Another thing is not to make everything required. I've seen forms where every single form field is required. That's just too much. It's asking too much, and it just seems too demanding. So only make the required elements that you absolutely need. Don't try to make everything required. Another tip is not to ask complicated questions. Now, this sounds like common sense, but you would be surprised at how many landing pages get this wrong. They have these really complicated questions that are usually asking for a long form, fill in the blank type response, and it just takes way too much effort and it causes too much cognitive load on the visitor. It's just not worth it. So just make sure you're asking simple questions and keeping it to a minimum. And also check the usability on your mobile devices. This is another common problem where you'll see a form that works really well on desktop, but then on a mobile device, something is broken or it's not as usable. So make sure that you're doing your testing on mobile devices because that's where we're going. For the most part, you're going to already be getting more mobile traffic than desktop traffic for the majority of industries now. And that's only going to keep increasing. So you really have to be mobile first when it comes to form design. The third tip I want to share is actually a recommendation from Tom New, the co-founder at Formismo. And he says, only ask what is required. If it's needed for your marketing, find another way to get that info or ask later, or just don't ask at all. This is another huge problem because I've seen forms where, let's say it's a free download for an ebook. They are literally asking 10 questions to get that ebook. That is just overkill. What do you really need to collect? If the bare minimum, maybe an email address, that's it. That's really the only thing you absolutely need, because once you have someone's email address, you can then send them a follow-up email and say, hey, thank you for downloading the ebook. Here it is. We'd love to learn more about you. Fill out this quick 1-minute survey. So that's called progressive profiling, where you've collected the minimum amount of information, you've got them into your email list, and then over time, you're going to ask them a few questions to build out that profile of who they are. So questions like, how'd you hear about us? Or who recommended you? Like, is that absolutely necessary? That's the question you need to ask yourself with every single form field. So as a homework assignment, go look at your forms and go through every question and say, is this absolutely necessary? Would I be okay not collecting this information if I knew it was going to increase my conversion rate? Because the less you ask, the higher your conversion rate will be on average, because people do not like filling out forms. You got to keep it as simple as possible. People are not filling out the form for the sake of filling out the form. They're filling it out to get what's on the other side of the form. So keep that in mind. Make it easy for them. The fourth tip is to improve user motivation to complete the form. So this is a really good example from Conversion XL. If you're not familiar with Conversion XL or CXL, it's a very popular conversion optimization blog. One of my favorites. Definitely check it out. So Marcus Taylor from Conversion XL, he gives a really cool analogy. He says, think about requesting a plumber versus receiving a free Ferrari. So in the example that he gives, he's basically saying, imagine if you landed on a page with 50 questions and you were trying to request a plumber. That seems absurd, and you probably wouldn't do it just to get a plumber. Now, imagine you're on that same page, but you're not requesting a plumber. You are requesting a free Ferrari. The Ferrari is absolutely free. It's guaranteed to you as long as you fill out these 50 questions. Does that change your motivation? Probably. I would say for the most For most of us, we wouldn't mind filling out 50 questions on a form if we know 100% that we are going to get a free Ferrari once we do it. Would we do it for requesting a plumber or downloading an ebook? Probably not. So that just shows that that's where sometimes you can have a really long form and it'll convert well if the user is so motivated for what you're offering. If they really perceive the value and they really want what you're offering, then they're going to do it. So just keep that user motivation idea in mind as you build out your form and try to do everything you can to provide so much value that it's a no-brainer that filling out the form is worth the effort because they want what's on the other side of that form. And the last tip number 5, is to use marketing psychology to increase your form fills. Now, there's a cool concept from the folks over at Leadpages called the give-take dynamic. And so basically what they say is when you land on a page that has a form staring you in the face above the fold with all the form fields right there, people are going to perceive that as a taking page. It's taking information from you. Now, if you maybe put the form below the fold, or you put a 2-step form where they have to click on a button first before they see the form field, and the button says, get your free ebook or request your free consultation, now the page looks like a giving page. It's giving something to you because people perceive these form fields as taking. So what you want to do is you want to create giving pages, not taking pages. One of the best ways to do that, like I just mentioned, is to test out a 2-step opt-in process where you have a button with a really nice call to action, and then the button will open up a light box or something, and that's going to contain the form. So the form is not immediately visible. Or you can have a button at the top of your landing page, and when they click on it, it scrolls them down to the bottom of the page, and that's where the form lives. So that is a very popular way to create more of a giving page rather than a taking page. And the principle behind this that works really well, that makes it work, is called the endowed progress effect. This is a psychological principle that basically says people are more likely to complete something if there's an illusion of progress. And people like doing things step by step. So for instance, if step 1 is just clicking a button, that's easy. But now they see, oh, now there's a form. They're more likely to fill it out because they've already started the process and they want to continue it and they want to complete it. The other cool thing about the endowed progress effect is that progress, the better you can represent progress, the more likely someone is to complete that process. So this is where if you break up a form, maybe say you have 10 questions, you break it up over 5 different pages and you have 2 questions on a page, that's going to also help people complete a long form because they're making progress step by step, especially if you can show a progress bar. Progress bars are great. If they say you're 50% of the way through, you're 90% of the way through, that's going to help people move towards the end because people do not like starting something and not finishing it. So definitely use those types of marketing psychology best practices to optimize your forms. So that's it. Those are the 5 tips. I hope you have found these useful. Again, you can get links to everything that I cover, including some of the articles that go into more depth on these specific tips at landingpageschool.com/005 for episode 5. Before you go, I would absolutely love to get your feedback on this podcast so far. Tell me what you think. You can email me at hello@landingpageschool.com or just go to landingpageschool.com. You can find me on social media and reach out there. And if I can just ask you to do one thing, this is a brand new podcast, so I would be so honored if you could leave an honest rating and review on iTunes. Just go to landingpageschool.com/iTunes. It takes just a few minutes. Leave an honest rating and review. That would be one of the greatest ways you can help others discover this show for the very first time. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.
The Landing Page School Podcast is a production of Earn Worthy LLC.